What if I told you that the moment you thought you'd lost everything was just the beginning of a nightmare? That's what I found myself grappling with after that fateful night on Maple Street, just a few blocks from my childhood home in Brookline. The accident was swift, a flash of headlights, a sickening crunch, and then darkness. I remember the sirens blaring and the faces of strangers peering into my world, their expressions a mix of concern and horror. But it wasn't until I woke up in the hospital, bandaged and bruised, that the real terror began. I should have been grateful to be alive, but as I lay there, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, I felt an unsettling presence lingering just beyond the edges of my vision. My name is Ethan McAllister, and I was the kid in the neighborhood who always had a knack for finding trouble. I'd spent my youth exploring the abandoned houses along Maple Street, imagining the ghosts of their pasts. Little did I know, I was about to become one of those stories. A living testament to the darkness that sometimes seeps through the cracks of our mundane existence. After I was discharged, I returned to my childhood home, a dilapidated relic that had seen better days. The peeling wallpaper and creaking floorboards whispered secrets of the past, and I could feel the weight of memories pressing down on me. My mother, who had battled her own demons, had left the house long ago, seeking solace in the arms of bottle after bottle. My father had succumbed to despair, leaving me to navigate the shadows of my own life. Those ghosts haunted me, much like the entity that now lurked just out of sight. It started with the whispers, soft, unrecognizable murmurs that danced on the edges of my consciousness. I brushed them off as remnants of my trauma, the echoes of tires screeching and glass shattering. But soon, the whispers morphed into something more tangible. I began to see flashes of movement in the corners of my eye, a flicker of a figure that seemed to shimmer like a mirage. I told myself it was a trick of the light, a side effect of the medications they'd prescribed me, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. The first sign that things had spiraled into the realm of the supernatural came one rainy evening. I was staring at the cracked ceiling, lost in thought, when a chill swept through the room, freezing the air around me. My breath hung in the air like a fog, and that's when I saw it. A silhouette, dark and elongated, standing in the doorway. It wasn't just a shadow. It had depth, a pulsating energy that made my skin crawl. I blinked, and it was gone. But the weight of its presence lingered, pressing down on me like a lead blanket. Brookline had always been a quiet town, but now the familiar streets felt alien and menacing. The once comforting sounds of children playing and the rustle of leaves in the wind turned into a cacophony of dread. Even the old oak tree in the front yard, which had been my sanctuary during childhood, now appeared sinister, its gnarled branches twisted like fingers grasping for something just out of reach. But as the days blurred into nights, I realized this being, whatever it was more than just a phantom. It was a harbinger of secrets buried deep within the town's history, and I was caught in its web. With every passing moment, I felt the pull of something larger than myself, a call to uncover the truth behind the darkness that had seeped into my life. But when night fell, something inexplicable happened. As night fell over Brookline, the shadows deepened, wrapping the town in a cloak of unease. I found myself pacing the worn floorboards of my childhood home, my mind racing with questions I had no answers to. The silhouette I'd seen lingered in my thoughts, a dark specter that refused to be ignored. I knew I had to confront whatever it was that haunted me. This entity was not just a figment of my imagination. It was a part of something much larger, something that tied my fate to the very essence of Maple Street. That's when I decided to seek help. My old friend, Sarah, had always been the level-headed one, the voice of reason amidst my reckless escapades. She had a knack for digging into the town's history, often dragging me along on her quests to uncover local legends and forgotten tales. I hoped that her affinity for the past might shed light on my present darkness. I texted her, my fingers trembling as I typed. "Can we meet? I need to talk." The response came almost instantly. "Of course, meet me at the cafe in an hour." The cafe, a quaint little spot adorned with mismatched furniture and the scent of freshly brewed coffee, was a familiar refuge. As I entered, I spotted Sarah sitting at a corner table, her curly hair bouncing as she waved me over. I could see the concern etched on her face as I took a seat across from her. "Ethan, you look different," she remarked, her voice laced with worry. "What's going on?" "I don't even know where to start," I admitted, my gaze dropping to the table. "After the accident, things have changed. I'm seeing things. I don't think it's just trauma. I think there's something wrong with the house. Or maybe the whole town." Sarah leaned in, her eyes narrowing. "What do you mean? What have you seen?" I recounted the chilling encounter with the silhouette, the whispers that had invaded my mind, and how the familiar streets now felt foreign and threatening. Each word I spoke seemed to thicken the air around us, drawing in the very shadows of our childhood adventures. "I believe you," she said after a moment, her expression serious. "There are stories, old stories about Maple Street. They say the land is cursed. People who have lived in those houses have experienced strange occurrences. I thought they were just urban legends, but it seems there might be some truth to them." My heart raced. "Do you think this is connected to the accident?" "I don't know," she replied, her brow furrowing. "But we need to find out. If there is a curse or some kind of darkness, we have to break it. Otherwise, it won't just be you who suffers." As we spoke, the cafe grew dimmer, the light flickering as if the very building was reacting to our conversation. I could feel the weight of my past pressing down on me and the shadows creeping in as though eager to hear what we were uncovering. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the back of the cafe, causing both of us to jump. A barista rushed past us, a look of panic on her face. "The back room is flooding! Something's wrong with the plumbing!" I exchanged a worried glance with Sarah. As we stood to investigate, I felt a chill race down my spine. The sensation of being watched was back, stronger than ever. It was as if the entity I had sensed before was now lurking, not just in my house, but in the very fabric of the town. I had unwittingly stepped into a mystery far darker than I had anticipated, and the stakes were rising. My heart pounded as we made our way toward the commotion, each step echoing with the promise of danger. What awaited us on the other side? I had no idea, but the shadows were closing in, and I felt their grasp tightening around my throat. "Ethan, wait!" Sarah's voice trailed off, and I turned to see her pale face, realization dawning in her eyes. I think we're not alone. With that, I knew I had to face whatever was waiting for us, and that the nightmare was just beginning. As I turned to confront whatever darkness lurked behind us, a shiver raced down my spine. Sarah's eyes widened. A mix of fear and something else, recognition, flashed across her face. I felt a sudden rush of urgency, as if time itself had tightened its grip around my throat. We had to move, but my feet felt as heavy as lead. "Ethan, listen," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "When you mentioned the silhouette, it reminded me of something I read about a family that lived in your house before you. They too experienced strange occurrences, disappearances, whispers in the night." Her voice trembled, and I could see the wheels turning in her head. "They say the shadows began with their son, Caleb. He vanished without a trace, and the parents were never the same afterward." A cold wave of realization washed over me. I had heard those names in passing, the whispers of my childhood. Caleb. I had brushed them aside as mere stories, cautionary tales meant to scare children. But now, They bore a weight I hadn't been prepared for. What does this have to do with me? My voice cracked, the fear creeping in as the implications settled. Ethan, think about it. You've been seeing things since the accident, since you returned to the house. Her eyes bore into mine, searching for clarity. What if Caleb's spirit is trying to reach you? Or maybe, she paused, swallowing hard. Maybe it's something darker. What if you're connected to his disappearance somehow? My heart raced as I replayed the memories of my childhood, the games we played, the stories we shared. My mind flitted back to the attic, the dusty trunk I had stumbled upon last week. Inside lay old photographs, faded letters, and a journal belonging to Caleb. A journal filled with frantic scrawls about the Watchers and the darkness beneath the floorboards. I had dismissed it as mere childhood musings, but now the words felt like a warning. The barista's frantic voice brought me back. There's something in the back. It's spreading. Panic echoed in the cafe, and I could feel the energy shifting, the air thickening. I glanced at Sarah, who was now pale, her breath quickening. What if it's not just your house? I asked, my mind racing. What if it's the whole street? What if we're all connected to this curse? Just then, the lights flickered violently, plunging us into darkness for a split second before the emergency lights kicked in. The atmosphere grew electric, charged with anticipation and dread. I could feel it, the presence, the weight of the past pressing down on us. Ethan, we need to leave. Now! Sarah urged, her voice urgent. But as I turned to escape, I caught sight of a shadow darting across the far wall, a fleeting glimpse of something that made my heart stop. It was Caleb, or whatever had taken his form. Wait! I shouted, my voice echoing in the chaos. We have to find out what it wants. In that moment, I realized that this wasn't just about me or my sanity. This was a reckoning with a past I had long tried to forget, a confrontation with the secrets that had been buried beneath Maple Street. I had to dig deeper, to unravel the truth that tied me to Caleb, to the darkness that threatened to consume us both. And as I stepped forward, I felt the pull of something larger than myself, a destiny intertwined with shadows and whispers, beckoning me closer to the heart of the mystery. But with every step I took, I could feel the shadows closing in, and I knew this was only the beginning. As I stepped forward into the fray, the air around me crackled with an almost palpable energy. The cafe, once a refuge filled with the comforting aroma of coffee, now felt like a cage, the walls closing in as shadows stretched across the floor like claws. I could hear Sarah's frantic breaths behind me, and despite the terror gnawing at my insides, I felt a strange sense of purpose. Ethan, don't, she cried, but her plea fell into the void of my determination. I had to confront whatever this was, whatever had haunted Caleb and now threatened us. The shadow flickered again, darting just out of my line of sight, taunting me. My heart raced. As I turned, and for a fleeting moment I thought I could see the outline of a boy, no older than 10, his eyes filled with an unfathomable sadness. Caleb. I shouted, my voice echoing through the cafe, mingling with the frantic whispers of the terrified patrons. If you're here, show yourself. There was a moment of silence, a stillness that felt heavy with anticipation. And then, from the depths of that darkness, a figure emerged. No longer just a shadow, but a silhouette. A boy with hollow cheeks and a gaze that pierced my soul. Help me, he mouthed, his voice a mere echo in my mind, carried on the winds of forgotten dreams. I stumbled back, the weight of his plea crashing over me like a wave. What happened to you? I asked, my voice trembling. Why are you trapped? Suddenly, the cafe erupted around us. The barista, now pale and wild-eyed, stumbled forward, panic etched across her face. It's spreading! We need to get out! It's feeding off our fear! She grabbed my arm, trying to pull, Me back, but I resisted, my instincts screaming for me to stay grounded. "Let me go!" I shouted, shaking her off. The urgency of Caleb's presence surged through me, igniting a fire I hadn't known I possessed. "This isn't just fear, it's a connection. We need to understand." "Ethan, please." Sarah's voice was sharp, with desperation. "You don't know what you're dealing with. It's not just Caleb, it's something much darker." But I couldn't turn away. The shadows pulsed with life, and I felt the weight of Caleb's sorrow crashing against my heart. "What is it?" I demanded of the boy, stepping closer, my voice steady despite the chaos swirling around me. "What do you want?" The shadow trembled, then surged forward, and in that instant, I felt a rush of memories flooding my mind. Whispers of laughter, the echo of a childhood game, and then darkness. I saw Caleb's fear, his confusion, the moment he vanished. And I felt it too. It was a terror that intertwined with my own, a connection forged in loss. I glanced back at Sarah and the barista, their faces pale with dread. "We have to break this cycle! Together!" I shouted, the determination in my voice cutting through the panic. "Ethan, no!" Sarah screamed as the shadows began to swirl around us, thickening with a life of their own. But it was too late. The shadows lunged, and in that moment I knew. This was my choice, my moment to confront the darkness that had haunted my family, to unravel the truth that bound me to Caleb. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever lay ahead, and as I reached out toward the shadow, the room exploded with a blinding light, the force of our past colliding with the unknown. I felt my very essence shaken, and I realized that the battle had only just begun. As the blinding light enveloped me, I felt an electric surge course through my body, a mixture of fear and determination that left me breathless. The shadows writhed and twisted, their grip loosening just enough for me to break free. I stumbled back, my heart pounding like a war drum in my chest, and for a moment I thought I had emerged victorious. But the cost was higher than I had anticipated. When the light faded, the cafe was eerily quiet, the chaos replaced by an unsettling stillness. The patrons, once frantic and scattered, now stood frozen, their expressions a blend of confusion and relief. I glanced around to find Sarah and the barista, both wide-eyed and shaken, yet somehow grounded in the aftermath of the storm we had just faced. "Ethan!" Sarah rushed to me, her hands trembling as she cupped my face. "Are you okay?" I nodded, but the truth was more complicated. My body felt heavy, as if the weight of the shadows had imprinted themselves onto my skin. Though I had faced the darkness, I could still feel its presence, lurking just beyond the periphery of my consciousness. It was as if I had been marked, a reminder of the battle I had fought, not just for Caleb, but for every soul ensnared in that web of fear. Did we save him?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The barista shook her head slowly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I think we pushed it back, but it's not gone. It's still out there, feeding off the shadows of our fears." Her words hung in the air, a chilling reminder that our victory was not absolute. Caleb's silhouette flickered in my mind, a bittersweet echo of the boy who once roamed these streets, now part of a story that felt unfinished. I would carry his memory like a scar, a reminder of the darkness that could easily return. Sarah's grip tightened on my arm. "We have to be ready. This won't be the last time it surfaces." As if on cue, the lights in the cafe flickered ominously. I exchanged a glance with Sarah, and in that moment, I realized that the shadows were not merely a haunting. They were a harbinger of deeper mysteries yet to unfold. Outside, the world continued, blissfully unaware of the battle that had raged inside. As we stepped through the cafe doors, I caught sight of a figure in the distance, a girl with dark hair, watching us intently. There was something familiar about her, a connection that felt unsettling, like a thread pulling me toward an unseen fate. "Ethan, let's go," Sarah urged, pulling me away from the girl's gaze. But I couldn't shake the feeling that she held answers to questions I didn't yet know to ask. As we walked away, I felt the weight of the past on my shoulders, and I understood that the shadows had not just been a trial, they were a prelude. The scars they left behind were not just reminders of what I had faced, but markers of a journey that was far from over. In the days that followed, I would learn more about Caleb's fate, the connection between our fears, and the girl who watched us from the darkness. Each revelation would lead me deeper into a world I had only begun to understand, where shadows could be both a curse and a key to unlocking secrets that lay waiting in the depths of our souls. The shadows had retreated, but they would return, and this time I would be ready. As the days blurred into nights, I found myself trapped in a cycle that felt as familiar as it was haunting. The shadows had retreated, but I could sense their restless energy simmering beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to strike again. Each time I closed my eyes, Caleb's face flickered before me, a reminder that our fight was far from over. I often returned to that cafe, the place where our battle had unfolded, hoping to glean some understanding from the echoes of the past. Yet with each visit, I could feel the same electric surge course through me, a jolt of fear and determination that left me breathless once more. The patrons, once oblivious, now wore expressions of wariness, as if they too sensed the darkness lurking just beyond the veil of their everyday lives. One evening, as I sat in a corner booth, the door swung open and there she was, the girl with dark hair watching me with an unsettling familiarity. I felt the pull of her gaze, as if we were bound by an unspoken connection that transcended the chaos we had faced. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice a haunting melody that sent shivers down my spine. "It's time." I stood, compelled forward, and as I approached her, the cafe around me began to dissolve, the walls blurring into shadows once more. The familiar surge enveloped me again, and I realized with dread that I was stepping into an eternal cycle, a loop of battles fought and lost, a repetition of confrontations with the shadows that would never fully vanish. Every time, she murmured, her eyes reflecting the weight of memories. "We must confront the darkness anew." And just like that, I was thrust back into the fray, another battle waiting to unfold. The cycle had begun again, and with it, the promise of uncertainty loomed. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Share with your friends so they can also embark on this mystery-filled adventure. Leave a comment below telling us your favorite part or what kind of